Today we are going to discuss a very, very interesting and a very common and important finding in pediatric endocrinology. We all know that 21 hydroxylase deficiency is one of the most severe forms of disorders which we as pediatric endocrinologists encounter, and often the reflex is that as soon as you diagnose somebody as 21 hydroxylase, you start them on hydrocortisone and fludrocortisone, which is genuine because it may take time to make a diagnosis. But what we need to understand is that because these conditions are lifelong, even though they are life threatening, so starting steroids may be appropriate, but because they are lifelong, we need to be careful in terms of establishing the right diagnosis. So you all can go and have a look at our website learning.growsociety.in, which will highlight a number of these resources. You can have a look at our master courses which are available on the website. There is also a specific 3-year course for postgraduates which is available, and our book is available as well as the apps on the iOS and the Android store. We all know that the first process of steroidogenesis starts from the conversion of 7-dehydrocholesterol to cholesterol under the influence of DHC7 reductase. And this is the initial process. And cholesterol is the backbone of all the steroids that we talk about. From cholesterol, we can then store it in the form of a cholesterol sulfate, a process which requires basically a esterase as well as a phosphatase, which will convert it into a sulfation process. And from there, we start producing the hormones. The first most important compound is actually produced under the influence of 3 major enzymes: side chain cleavage, STAR, which is not really an enzyme. It is basically a transporter which pushes cholesterol into the mitochondria, and very importantly, we'll get pregnenolone, which will be one of the first important compound which happens. From pregnenolone, we have got different activities which happen, and 17-hydroxylase lyase is the key branch point, so to speak, as far as steroid synthesis is concerned. Now, 17-hydroxylase and lyase are part of the same enzyme. If you have got no 17-hydroxylase, no 17-lyase, which is basically there in zona glomerulosa, your end product will be aldosterone. If you have got 17-hydroxylase but no lyase, the end product will be cortisol. And if you have got both 17-hydroxylase and lyase, the end product will be DHEA. So 17-hydroxylase and lyase will produce DHEA, which is immediately sulfated. And this sulfation will actually prevent from the hyperandrogenic effect which is there. And this DHEAS and this whole process requires an enzyme known as PAP-SS2, the deficiency of which will cause excess amount of free DHEA, which will cause hyperandrogenism. So we'll discuss about that briefly. There is also a conversion of these compounds peripherally, and this is important to understand that the hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase have multiple isoforms. The hydroxylases do not have isoforms, but HSDs have isoform. And one of our cases will highlight why this is important. So this 3-beta HSD, which is available only as far as our own steroidogenic pathway is concerned, but it is also available externally in the liver, in the placenta, in different regions. And this will convert some of these precursors into steroid hormones, which will happen. And that can cause confusion in certain situations like this. So in 3-beta HSD deficiency, you will have lots of delta 5 precursors which are circulating, but some of them will be converted into delta 4. Your testosterone levels will be slightly high for a XX individual causing DSD, but they will be very low for a XY individual, so causing DSD in both genders. So as we'll discuss, the 3-beta HSD deficiency will cause abnormalities of both XX as well as XY DSD. Now, we all know that we can also have 17-beta HSD, which will then convert this into testosterone, and this activity is also there in the lipid factors from there. And from there, we can aromatize to produce estradiol, and this estradiol is the final mediator of growth plate maturation and fusion, which happens in this perspective. Now, as discussed, the adipocytes have got a number of these enzymes. They include aromatase, 17-beta HSD, and 11-beta HSD. So whatever you are producing from the adrenals can be converted in the adipocytes into testosterone, into estrogen, as well as into cortisol as well, because it has got multiple activities. So all these peripheral activity becomes important. Now, once you have got 17 hydroxylase, the second important thing, as I discussed, is the 3-beta HSD, and the combination thereon, you will then start producing your major cortisol as well as aldosterone. So 17 hydroxylase, no lyase, but 17 OH, but 3-beta HSD, then your 21 hydroxylase will come up and you will start producing the enzymes and activity from there, and you will start producing cortisol. So cortisol production from the zona fasciculata will require 17 hydroxylase, but no lyase. So conditions in which you have a 17 hydroxylase deficiency, you will basically have cortisol deficiency with excess of aldosterone. And this is an important consideration to consider. And on that other hand side, this cortisol is continuously being inactivated to cortisone by 11 beta HSD 2, particularly in the mineralocorticoid responsive tissue, because cortisol and aldosterone both have got equal affinity. And in this perspective, if you have got too much level of cortisol, which is 1,000 times more as compared to the level of aldosterone, you will overwhelm the capacity, and this 11 beta HSD2 really inactivates the excess cortisol, shielding the mineralocorticoid receptor from the effect of cortisol. And there is of course this hexose pathway which helps that, and this causes apparent cortisol deficiency, which we'll discuss subsequently sometime later. Now, the third major pathway in which you have got no 17 hydroxylase, no lyase, this is zona glomerulosa, and there you will have the production of aldosterone which will happen. So this is the overview as far as steroidogenesis is concerned, and based on that it becomes very easy to identify the abnormalities as and when, where they will happen. Now there are other factors which are also important, and most of them are the electron donors. So the whole process is all oxidation, reduction, and for that electron donors become important, and POR is particularly important. This P450 oxidoreductase basically is important for three major enzyme activity. It is involved for 17 hydroxylase, it is involved for 21 hydroxylase and aromatase. So POR deficiency will mimic the problems faced by 17, which is basically under-virilization and hypertension, 21, which is salt wasting with virilization, and aromatase, which is virilization. So manifestation will be variable. Your salt wasting may not be that severe, but you may have XX and XY DSD again. So second condition to cause both DSD in XX and XY after, as we had discussed earlier with regards to 3-beta HSD, would be this POR in this perspective. Now, if we discuss all that, why we discuss that, so that it becomes very easy to really go through the different causes from that perspective. So if we start the first defect, that would be the DHC7. Now, this defect theoretically should result in complete abolition of steroidogenesis, but often because there is some production of cholesterol happening somewhere else and there may be some extra, so that's why it doesn't cause a complete deficiency. The effect of this is known as Smith-Lemeli-Optis syndrome, which usually presents with milder salt wasting and mainly in terms of XY-DSD. Now, what you need to understand is that XY-DSD is an act of, Pratik? DSD is act of omission. So if you are not producing testosterone, you will have a XY-DSD. While XX-DSD is an act of commission. You have to produce extra testosterone to cause XX-DSD. So when you're classifying this whole CAH, just remember what is happening to the mineralocorticoid, what is happening to the androgen, and you will know that. So in this perspective, everything is gone. So of course, you will basically have a XY-DSD. If it's 0, it is XY-DSD, and it will cause delayed puberty in girls. But the normal appearance will be there at birth. So classic SLO will present with XY-DSD and salt wasting. Now you can have another problem, which is in the sulfation process. So here what is happening is that all your money is deposited in the bank, but you cannot take it out because all is in the form of sulfate. You can't take it out. So you will effectively have what is known as Wolman syndrome, in which you'll have huge adrenals, lot of fat there, but you can't use it. So this is again a form of a proximal defect, but there will be many more manifestations. Now, how do you identify these two? Cyan, SLO and Woolman? Yes. So lipid profile will give you a very, very good clue immediately. And in our 1 hour cases, we had done the lipid profile to evaluate for these conditions. So these are very easy to identify clinically in that. If we go from there, we have got the defect in the side chain cleavage and star. Again, they will behave in a similar fashion as compared to the other defects. But what will happen in this setting is that you will have huge adrenals, because adrenals are trying to produce a greater amount of steroids, which you are not able to, so they become big. And this is therefore known as lipoid hyperplasia. So there's a lot of lipid there. SLO, there is no cholesterol, so how will you have lipids? Woolman, of course, you will have too much of sulfated product, which will cause calcification. So this adrenal morphology will also give you a clue as to where you are heading. So if you have a very proximal defect, which is lipoid hyperplasia, it will again cause same picture, XYDSD and salt wasting. Let's go down further. You have a problem in the 17 hydroxylase. So 17 hydroxylase, Naveen, what is the problem that you will see?
17 hydroxylase is cause an XY-DSD with hypertension and delayed puberty and hypertension in case of females.
Yeah. So 17 hydroxylase, basically what you need to understand is that your cortisol is gone, your androgen is gone, but your mineralocorticoid is high. So you will have hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, along with actor formation, which will cause basically a XY-DSD at birth. So 17 hydroxylase will cause hypertension and XY-DSD. 3-beta HSD sign, what do you think?
The 3-beta HSD, all 3 levels will be decreased. So there will be salt wasting, but it will be variable. And so in XY, in a male, it will be undervarialization, while in a female, it will be virilization.
So as against hydroxylases, which do not have isoforms, we discussed that beta HSDs have isoforms. So 3-beta HSD peripheral activity will be there, which will partially compensate. So maybe the salt wasting will not be very extreme as 21 hydroxylase, but you will have DSD both in XX as well as in XY. What will happen to their 17 OHP levels, Pratik?
It will be raised because of peripheral conversion.
How raised?
Mildly raised, not so high.
Yeah. So out of the condition that we discussed till now, SLO, Woolman syndrome, side chain cleavage, star, or 17 hydroxylase. Everywhere 17 OHP will be low. But this is the first condition, 3-beta HSD, where it will be mildly elevated. So mildly means maybe around 30 to 100 would be the sort of levels that we are talking about. So mildly elevated 17 OHP levels may happen here, and this may cause confusion as happened in one of our cases. So this is all a background we are trying to create in that situation. Now, the other problem, of course, here, this is the classical picture. This is what we don't want you to diagnose in all our cases that we're discussing today, but this is the most common 21 hydroxylase deficiency. The problem would be in Pratik.
For both will have salt wasting. If it is a salt wasting, XX will come with virilization, XY will come with precocious puberty.
So you have got androgen excess and mineralocorticoid deficiency. Cortisol deficiency is universal amongst all of them. So 21 hydroxylase will have salt wasting and XX-DSD, and of course precocious puberty if we talk about a bit later from there. Now if we talk about 11 hydroxylase, Naveen, 11 will cause?
Opposite of 17. It will cause an XX-DSD with hypertension, and males it will cause a precocious puberty with hypertension.
So high androgen and low amount of basically mineralocorticoids are also high because your precursors are high. So DOC is going to act on the mineralocorticoid receptor. Why does DOC work on the mineralocorticoid receptor, cyan, and not cortisol?
So because it isn't reactivated by the 11 beta.
So actually, if you put DOC, cortisol, and aldosterone in the lab and compare their activity on the mineralocorticoid receptor, DOC will be the lowest. But because it is not inactivated by 11 beta HSD, it has got a good mineralocorticoid activity, which is there in that perspective. So 11 hydroxylase will present to us basically with XX-DSD along with hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis. But is that the neonatal presentation, Pratik, for 11?
The requirement of mineralocorticoid is much higher, so it will actually have salt wasting in it.
So very interestingly, in the newborn period, you may have mild salt wasting, because if you look at the aldosterone graph, it is highest in the first 2 weeks and comes down like this. So in that 2 week period, this level of DOC may not be sufficient to avoid salt wasting crisis. So there will be a mild crisis, and then they will go back in terms of a hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, and this will be relevant from one of the cases that we discussed in that. So don't get confused. If you have mildly elevated, mild salt wasting, which is now shifting towards hypertension, think of 11, not 21 in that regard. What will happen to 17 OHP level sign in this setting?
So it will be raised.
17 OHP will be raised, but not to a huge extent. So now if I ask Pratik, what are the conditions which have mildly elevated 17 OHP levels?
The mildly elevated 11 hydroxylase deficiency, 3 beta hydroxylase, 17 lyase might have. And
Anything else?
POR will also-
POR. So these will be there. What are the non-CAH conditions in which 17 OHP may be high? Naveen. False positive reports of 17 OHP. So stress, of course, stress, if you are producing too much cortisol, the levels will be high. If it is prematurity, it will cause that. These are the two conditions. And one thing to remember is that you have got a lot of fetal adrenal working at this time. And fetal adrenal produces a huge number of steroids, and most of them are sulfated. Because your sulfonyl transferase is very active in the fetal adrenal. So if you do not do an extracted sample, your 17 OHP may be falsely high. So this is another consideration to be thought of, and which will become relevant when we discuss our cases today again in that perspective. Now, if we move forward, we can have, these are isolated defects. This is not really a CAH, because when we say CAH, the fundamental thing is cortisol deficiency. Cortisol deficiency, ACTH excess, large adrenal. This is the triad for CAH. Now, this is a steroidogenic defect of 11 aldosterone synthase. Because cortisol is normal, the adrenal will not be enlarged. So this condition will present basically with salt wasting. Similarly, if you have a 17 beta HSD deficiency, this will mainly cause the effect on androgen deficiency with no effect on cortisol and other aspects, and adrenal size will be normal. If you have a aromatase deficiency, this is again not a CAH, you will have, what will happen in that setting, Sayan?
So, aromatase deficiency. So, as it is aromatase deficiency, there will be excess androgen levels during the intrauterine phase. So, the mother will have features of virilization. The child will XX individual will present with virilization, and again will complain with delayed puberty.
So simple is that your androgen to estrogen production is defective. So before the block, androgen will be high. After the block, estrogen will be low. Because your androgen is high, that's why you present as DSD at birth and delayed puberty later on. This again will be relevant in one of our cases. So again, this understanding is important. So aromatase causes XX DSD. If we talk about PAP-SS2, this is basically high DHEA. It is more of a differential of PCOS. It doesn't really present in the congenital phase. Very important to remember is, again, XO6-phosphate is again cortisol deficiency, apparent rare case in that perspective. 11 beta HSD, again interesting, not really a CAH. You will have lesser conversion of cortisol to cortisone, causing hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, which is responsive to spironolactone. So this will be apparent mineralocorticoid excess. So this will be that situation. And finally, you will have a problem of POR, which is a confusing state, which will cause effect of three hormones: aromatase, 21-hydroxylase, and 17-hydroxylase. So it can again present to us with a salt loss, which is milder, and XX and XY-DSD. So if you now look at the whole busy slide, it will really tell you the entire pathophysiology of CAH, and this will be something which can really help us guide in terms of diagnosis. So now if we make it simpler, we have discussed about all the basics. All you have to look at mineralocorticoid and androgens. So mineralocorticoid deficiency, now androgen can either be high, low, or normal. So if you have androgen deficiency and mineralocorticoid deficiency, everything low, presenting with salt wasting and XY-DSD, you're talking about proximal defects. like star, HCC, 3-beta-HSD, POR. You can add SLO also into that picture. Then if you talk about high androgens but low mineralocorticoid, which means XX-DSD with salt wasting, you're talking mainly 21 hydroxylase deficiency, but milder will be 3-beta-HSD with POR. And finally, if you talk about just mineralocorticoid deficiency, that is the aldosterone synthase defect, which is not really a CAH. Now, if you go into a normal mineralocorticoid with an androgen which is low, then you're not talking about CAH, you're talking about 17-beta-HSD basically, and if you talk about excess, which is aromatase. Finally, too much mineralocorticoid with a low amount of androgen is 17-hydroxylase, XY-DSD with hypertension. If you talk about XX, that will be 11-hydroxylase, which is XX-DSD with hypertension. And finally, if it's normal, it is 11-beta-HSD, which is the upper end mineralocorticoid excess. So if you think in terms of CH, think whether your androgens are low or high, your aldosterone or your mineralocorticoid is low or high, you can classify that. And this would be used many times when we talk about our cases today, because that will make it much easier in that perspective. So now if we talk about CAH with mineralocorticoid deficiency, we have got star SCC, which will cause delayed puberty. So any actor formation will cause delayed puberty in girls, and XY-DSD in boys, and low levels of all metabolites. 3-beta-HSD, again DSD in both boys and girls, salt wasting, and you will have very high level of DHEA and the delta 5 compounds. 17-hydroxy progesterone may be mildly elevated. 21-hydroxylase deficiency DSD in girls, precocious puberty in boys, 17-OHP will be very, very high in that perspective. 11 aldosterone synthase, no effect on androgens. It is basically going to cause low aldosterone and precursors in that setting. And POR, as discussed, can cause DSD in both boys and girls. And along with that, you will have high DOC and 17-OHP levels. So again, this is the third non-21 hydroxylase deficiency after 3-beta and 11, which can cause slightly high levels as far as 17-OHP is concerned. Now, CAH with mineralocorticoid excess, we'll have 11 hydroxylase, in which you will have a DSD, XX-DSD in girls, early puberty in boys, 17 hydroxylase, which will cause basically XY-DSD and delayed puberty in girls, along with hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, and AME, which is just hypertension, early onset hypokalemic alkalosis, which will be there. CAH with normal mineralocorticoid, we discussed aromatase deficiency causing XX-DSD and delayed puberty, which may happen basically with 17-beta-HSD in girls, but it will cause a severe XY-DSD in boys. So this is a very simplistic way of comparing the whole phenomena of CAH. So when do we suspect CAH? Of course, if you have anybody with DSD, especially if it is non-palpable gonads, CAH becomes important. If there is peripheral precocious puberty in boys who have a small testis and precocious puberty, delayed puberty, especially in girls, especially with hypertension. If you have salt wasting, hyponatremia, hyperkalemia, metabolic acidosis, failure to thrive, if you have hypertension, think of the other way around, and of course, differential for hyperandrogenism, non-classical CAH, POR, aromatase deficiency, non-classical avalent hydroxylase, they will all present like a differential of PCOS in that perspective. Now, all of us have been told that when you have any of these, do a 17-OHP level. But we need to understand how to interpret these levels. So if 17-OHP is less than 300 nanogram per DL, less than 3 nanogram per ml, which may be often given in your units, don't think about CAH. If it's more than 3500, it is more like 21 hydroxylase, you're pretty much sure. Now, whether it is classical, salt wasting, simple virilizing, or non-classical is a different thing that will depend upon your clinical picture. If it's 300 to 1200, you can have some variants which are likely, and then you look at 11 hydroxylase, you do 11 DOC, for 3-beta-HSD, you do 17 hydroxypregnenolone, for POR, you do a urinary metabolite, which will give you a clue to diagnosis in that perspective. If it's between 1200 to 3500, it's better to do a ACTH test to make a diagnosis. So this is a rough criteria. Different people have some different criteria, but usually what we're trying to say is that the diagnosis, especially in this classical form, is never in doubt. If you properly look at 17-OHP, you will be able to make a diagnosis.
I would like to tell you another interesting story of a high 17-OHP not turning out to be a 21 hydroxylase deficiency. So this child presented to us at 13.5 years of age, but I would like to tell you the story when the child actually presented first to a physician. She presented in the neonatal period with atypical genitalia at birth, had clitoromegaly, labioscrotal fusion, so signs of virilization. There were no palpable gonads, but the 17-OHP was around 2,500 nanograms per dl.
So what will you think, Sayan, in this case?
So in this,
atypical genitalia at birth with clitoromegaly, non-palpable gonad. So we said non-palpable gonad with DSD, think of 21-hydroxy as the classical.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with, what do you think about the 17-OHP levels?
So 17-OHP levels were not that of a classical 21-hydroxylase. It would have been much higher, more than 10,000, but minimum it should have been more than 3,500. Yeah.
But sometimes we do see that sort of level, so you cannot rule it out, but you have to do more work out. That's what we're trying to say. So if you go by that flow chart that we said, probably in this case, we should have done a synaptin stimulation test to identify that.
Yes.
So this is important. So if you have no palpable gonads and you have got Polarine structures and you have got XX DSD, the first thing you will see in 90% of cases, you are looking for 21-hydroxylase. Your pretest probability is high. The 17-OHP, even if it is slightly high, you will take it. This is the whole bait which happens. The first case was totally atypical. There, anybody who would have applied the mind would not think of 21-hydroxylase. But this is a classical case in which you will think of 21-hydroxylase deficiency. But what are the other things, Pratik, you will have to think of in this case? Forget about 17-OHP.
Other causes of all XXDSD,
which include
11-beta-hydroxylase, 3-beta-HSD, aromatase problems, all those things are there.
And
PUR.
So these are all steroidogenic defects, but something else beyond steroidogenic.
Maternal virilization.
So maternal syndromes in which there are some tumors which can cause that, and of course any form of a gonadal dysgenesis in which you have got an extra production of androgen. So these are act of commission. Somewhere this androgen has to be coming. Now whether it is coming from the adrenal, from the maternal ovaries, or somewhere else, it has to come there. So you have to keep your minds open in that perspective. But of course, since this is the most common, you always go and say, okay, 17-OHP is slightly high. It may be report error, and let's start with CEH. This is the most classical thing which will be done in that perspective. What would you have done in this setting?
So as the 17-OHP is high with virilization, I would have started hydrocortisone, but would have worked up further for other causes.
And you would of course have looked into the electrolyte levels, which there was no salt wasting. So this can still be a simple virilizing form of 21-hydroxylase deficiency. ACTH stimulation test in this setting would be of benefit, definitely, in that perspective. Suppose she had come to you with salt wasting and with this level of 17-OHP. Would you do a ACTH test then? Why?
It's already
Yes. So if somebody is already salt wasting, there is already a ACTH test. Then the 17-OHP will be very, very low. Then you will think of salt wasting with 2500 17-OHP with in a XX-DSD.
So 25. So it can be other causes of.
So then you start thinking of 3-beta-HSD. Rarely 11 can also cause salt wasting in the initial period, and PUR. So this is the way. So this is a stable child presenting in an OPD basis with no hyponatremia, no hyperkalemia, XX-DSD, 17-OHP of 2500 plus minus CH is a possibility, but you would do a ACTH test to identify. This is what we would have done. But then this is in retrospect, what was done in 12 years ago, you don't know what the physicians were thinking. So that's how it progressed from there. Yeah.
So the 17-OHP was mildly raised. The karyotype turned out to be an XX variety. So it was diagnosed as a case of 21-hydroxylase and started on hydrocortisone. So as is done, clitoroplasty was done at 1 year of age. So on follow-up, the main concern was that the 17-OHP always remained low. So the hydrocortisone dose was gradually reduced, and to a level before stopping, they wanted to confirm their diagnosis. So they went in for a Sanger sequencing, which is the gold standard of genetic testing. And to their utter surprise, it came out to be normal.
So if the Sanger sequencing of 21 hydroxylase gene is normal, can it still be 21 hydroxylase deficient?
Most very less.
So,
Because you are doing for a particular gene.
so you're looking at the whole gene. Now, if your gene is normal, if there are issues of promoter region, enhancer region, all those things. But for 21, these are not valid. So this is, I'm trying to say that even if the complete gene is normal, maybe some other things can also affect the condition, but not important for 21 hydroxyl. So from this perspective, this is not 21 hydroxyl deficiency. And your 17 OHP always remained low. So this again brings us to the question. So even if you had started steroids, be wary that this may be something else. And if your 17 OHP is low, don't wait for 12 years. You start thinking early that there may be something else which is there. And when you talk about something else, you're thinking again about POR, 3-beta HSD, 11. 11 may switch over, and you're thinking of aromatase deficiency as a possibility. So these 4 conditions are there in that. What things will help you out in terms of differentiating these?
So if it was 11
Most
hydroxylase,
most important
It's a blood
clinical
pressure.
parameter is blood pressure and potassium.
Yeah.
Because if there was salt wasting which switched over towards hypokalemia, think of 11 as a most likely situation. Otherwise, for POR, it's a very vague situation. And for aromatase, there is a vague situation. But we'll discuss what you could have done at the first visit to make the diagnosis. So we'll come to that. Carry forward.
so as the hydrocortisone dose was very low, it was eventually stopped at around 12 years of age, as the 17-hydroxyprogesterone was always on the lower side. And the story at our clinic started at the age of around 13 and a half years, when she presented to Anurag sir with signs of delayed puberty.
So now if you think, Pratik, somebody with DSD and now delayed puberty, what does it tell you? So we said that XDSD is an act of commission. So you have DSD and delayed puberty is an act of omission. So this is a very interesting thing. You have got act of commission at birth and act of omission happening in puberty. So something is doing more in birth, going less in puberty. Only one condition can cause this. So the only theoretical possibility, if you just apply your brain, is very simple. There was androgen excess at birth, estrogen deficiency now. This is classical case of aromatase deficiency. And one question which will give you the answer, if you had asked that time, would have been very easy, and that was?
So history of virilization in the mother.
So if you just asked at that time, yes, was there virilization of the mother, was there hair growth, acne, which improved after delivery, your diagnosis is pretty much there for you to make. So this is the classical presentation in which one question can make a huge difference. Carry on.
So the investigations when she presented to us revealed these. It was a high FSH and LH with a normal 17 OHP. There was also a low AMH. The bone age was significantly delayed for the age.
So what does it mean when you say this means there's a global ovarian failure? You have got a follicle problem. That's why your FSH is high, your LH is high, your overall AMH, which also comes from mid-sized follicles, is also gone. So there's a big ovaries are pretty much not functioning. So they probably were in a toxic environment which caused them to damage. So this is a definite POI which has happened. And the other thing you're saying is that the bone age was delayed. Now, bone age could be delayed in this case because of?
So estrogen deficiency.
Yes, and if you give steroids, if you don't need steroids unnecessarily for 12 years, if you're getting steroids, your bone age may be delayed. But I don't think they were giving a very high dose because there was no Cushing-White features per se. Her height was also slightly delayed, but not to that extent. Bone age was more delayed. And the other thing that we looked at was that her bone density was reduced and her fat percentage was low. So again, showing that there is an estrogen problem which is happening in this situation. Carry on.
So as already discussed, this was a case of a DSD followed by ovarian insufficiency. And this history clinched the diagnosis clinically. Her mother had a history of virilization during pregnancy. So we suspected an aromatase deficiency and sent the genetic panel, which revealed 2 defects. And already, as has been discussed last Tuesday in the genetic class, there was a stop codon at 2 exons, which led to premature truncation of the protein. which confirmed a diagnosis of aromatase deficiency, and it was reported as a likely pathogenic because these mutations were novel and weren't reported previously.
But with a pretest probability of nearly 100% with this report, you will take it as definite aromatase deficiency without a confusion. So again, a second case which is very, very important and which highlights the importance of a very careful. So one question could have made a huge difference. This girl would not have been given any steroid at all if they had asked a simple question whether there is a maternal virilization. 21 hydroxylase does not cause maternal virilization. Why, Pratik?
It does not cross over to the androgen.
So what prevents the androgens, fetal androgens to cross? Aromatase. So aromatase is the sieve. 17 beta HSD is protecting the maternal androgens from coming from mother to the child, and aromatase in the placenta is preventing baby's androgens from going to the mother. So if you don't have aromatase, of course there's a problem. If you don't have a POR, again a similar problem, but not to this extent. So this is a classical case where it is very, very easy to be making a diagnosis if you just ask a quick questions. But again, two cases entirely different. The first case was not like 21 hydroxylase classically. Yes, there was a DSD and there was query salt wasting. That's the end of the story. But palpable gonad, you should have immediately thought. This case, yes, XX DSD, most likely 21 hydroxylase, but then maternal virilization, again, you could have made a diagnosis at that point. Yeah, Dr. Sabeen, so basically your question is about 17-OHP will be raised in which type of CAH? So essentially, conditions in which you have got a proximal defect, a side chain cleavage, 3-beta HSD problem, or any other problem in that perspective, you will not have an elevated level of 17-OHP. 21, of course, it is elevated. You will also have elevation in 3-beta because of peripheral conversion. You will have elevation in POR in 11. So essentially, these are the 4 conditions in which you will have a high 17-OHP. But remember, it can be high if you do not measure an extracted sample. It may be high if you are doing it very early, if you're doing in prematurity, in stress. So these all conditions you have to be wary about. So Nitin is asking, can PORD be considered a differential diagnosis in the 45? Exactly. So PORD can definitely be considered a differential in this perspective, but that is a rarer situation in that perspective. There will be some salt wasting which is there. 17-OHP elevation may be more in that perspective. So yes, it is a differential, but I would not be thinking, at least at this moment, in that perspective. Yeah.